It began with silence. Not the silence of space, where no air carries sound, but the silence of something much deeper. For thousands of years, the Grand Council's beacon had never stopped speaking. Its voice was not one of words, but of light, waves of coded energy that spread across the stars. Every world, every colony, every station of the galaxy listened to it. It was not only a machine. It was their pride. It was their proof that the Council was eternal, powerful, and unbroken. But then, without warning, the beacon stopped. At first, ships thought it was a local error. A broken receiver, a storm in the upper atmosphere, maybe a mistake in their signal arrays. But as hours passed, the silence spread. From one world to the next, the truth became clear. The beacon itself had gone dark. Panic began to rise in whispers. For most species, the beacon was more than a tool. It was a heart. It connected the farthest colonies to the center. It controlled trade, navigation, security, even defense grids. If the beacon was dead, then the Council was blind. And a blind Council was as weak as any fragile empire before it. The Council assembled in their chamber, a floating city above the gas giant Eltra. 10 great species gathered, each with long histories of power and wisdom. Their voices trembled as they debated. The beacon cannot simply fail, hissed Chancellor Valen of the Korth. It has stood for 10 millennia. Perhaps it was attacked, suggested Elder Ray of the Ilnari, her eyes glowing like deep oceans. If so, we face an enemy unlike any before. No enemy could even approach it, another shouted. Its defenses are absolute. And yet, absolute defenses had not stopped the silence. For 3 days, the Council argued. They sent their finest engineers, their brightest minds, their strongest fleets. None returned with answers. The beacon was silent, and no one knew why. That was when one of the younger delegates spoke a word that made the chamber fall quiet. Humans. The word itself was almost forbidden in that place. Humanity was small compared to the great empires. Their worlds were few, their fleets weak, their voices unheard in council halls. But they had a reputation, one that made many uneasy. They were problem solvers, fighters, survivors. They did things others would not dare. They are unpredictable, one counselor said with disgust. They are dangerous, another added quickly. They are necessary, whispered Elder Ray. Because for all their pride, none of the council's species had ever lived without the beacon. They had grown with it, depended on it, built their societies around it. Humans, however, were different. They were new to the stars. They had grown without the beacon's comfort. They knew how to survive in the dark. Reluctantly, the council voted. Humanity would be called. The message reached Earth in less than a day. At first, the humans laughed. The beacon was the council's greatest treasure, and now, suddenly, the mighty rulers of the galaxy wanted help from the very species they had always ignored. Still, laughter turned to curiosity, and curiosity turned to resolve. For if the council was asking, then the problem was greater than anyone had admitted. And so a ship was chosen. Not the largest, not the most advanced, but one built with something no other race understood: human stubbornness. Its captain was a woman named Kara Holt, known for her sharp mind and sharper temper. She did not like the council. She did not trust them. But she could not resist the challenge. Something broke their perfect toy, she said as she read the summons. And they think we can fix it. Her crew gathered around her, engineers, pilots, scientists, and soldiers. None of them were famous. None of them had great titles. But each of them carried the quiet fire of humanity. They would go where no other dared. The council's representatives met them at the edge of the beacon system. Even from a distance, the beacon was massive. A structure larger than a moon, wrapped in shining towers and endless rings, floating in eternal orbit around a dead star. It had always glowed with a blue-white light. Now it was black. "Your task is simple," one of the council envoys said, though his voice betrayed fear. "Find what has gone wrong. Restore the beacon. Do this, and the council will recognize humanity. Kara only smirked. Recognize? You mean admit you need us? The envoy did not answer. As Kara's ship approached the beacon, her crew stared in silence. The closer they came, the more they felt something was not right. The structure was not simply dead, it was cold, as if the very energy of life had been drained from it. Sensors flickered, instruments failed, and strange whispers echoed across their comms. One of the engineers muttered, "It feels haunted." "Machines don't haunt," Kara replied, but her eyes stayed on the dark towers. "Something else is here." The ship docked. The airlocks opened. And for the first time in history, humans stepped into the heart of the Council's pride. Inside, the silence was absolute. Dust floated in the artificial gravity. The walls glimmered with faint traces of light, like dying embers. Every corridor stretched into darkness, and every shadow seemed alive. Kara raised her light. "Stay sharp. The Council says it broke." "I think it was broken." Her words hung in the silence like a warning. Because in that moment, none of them knew the truth. The beacon had not fallen silent by accident. Something had silenced it. And it was still there, waiting. The silence inside the beacon pressed against them like invisible weight. Each footstep echoed through the vast metallic halls, bouncing back as if the structure itself was whispering. The corridors stretched endlessly, lined with glowing symbols that flickered like dying fireflies. Kara Holt moved first, her light cutting through the shadows. Behind her followed Dr. Lavin, the ship's science officer, always muttering into his recorder, and Juno, the youngest engineer, clutching her toolkit so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Two soldiers walked at the rear, rifles ready, though what they expected to fight in a dead station no one knew. "This place is too quiet," Juno whispered. "Because it's empty," Lavin replied without looking at her. His voice was calm, almost distracted. "A machine this size should hum. Power conduits, energy transfers, maintenance drones. But it's hollow." Kara slowed. "Hollow doesn't happen by accident." They pressed deeper, their lights falling across abandoned control panels. Dust lay thick on surfaces that should have been polished by drones every second. The beacon had always been described as perfect, flawless, eternal. What they saw now was decay, and decay always had a reason. As they reached a central chamber, the air shifted. Their suits registered no toxins, but each of them felt the same thing, something heavy, invisible, like standing too close to a storm. "Captain," one of the soldiers said, his hand tightening on his rifle. "I don't like this." "Noted," Kara replied. She wasn't smiling anymore. In the middle of the chamber stood the core access doors, tall, silver, and sealed. They were engraved with the same alien symbols that marked every surface. But unlike the others, these pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Lavin approached, fascinated. "The beacon is not dead. Something is still alive inside." Kara placed a hand on the cold metal. For a moment she thought she felt a vibration, like a distant heartbeat. Then, suddenly, her comms crackled. A voice whispered. Not words. Not a language. Just sound. Low, broken, almost human but not quite. It lasted only a second, then vanished. The crew froze. "Tell me someone else heard that," Juno said, her voice trembling. "Yeah," Kara said quietly. "We all did." The soldiers exchanged nervous glances. Machines did not whisper. Not unless something made them. Kara made her decision. "We open it." With effort, the crew forced the doors apart. The metal screamed as if resisting. Beyond lay the heart of the beacon. It was massive, an endless chamber filled with columns of crystal and circuits that stretched into darkness. Once, the core had glowed bright blue, its energy visible from orbit. Now it glowed faintly red, like dying coals. And in the center, suspended above the floor, hung something none of them expected. A shape. A figure. It looked almost like a body. Not machine, not fully alive, but something between. Its limbs were long and thin, its face hidden in shadow, and its chest glowed with the same red light as the core. Wires stretched from its body into the walls, like veins feeding from or into it. Juno gasped. "That's not supposed to be here." Laven's recorder shook in his hand. "No records mention anything like this. The beacon is supposed to be autonomous. No biological components. This is impossible." The figure stirred. Its head turned slowly, too slowly, until it faced them. Kara raised her weapon on instinct. "Identify yourself." The thing did not answer. Its mouth moved, but what came out was not language. It was that same broken whisper, now louder, like static clawing through their comms. Juno covered her ears. "Make it stop." Laven stumbled forward despite the noise, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's trying to communicate. This isn't static, it's a code, but corrupted. If we can." The figure screamed. The sound was not human, not alien, but something that made the walls tremble. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the ground shook beneath their feet. The soldiers opened fire, energy bolts tearing across the chamber, but the bullets passed through the figure as if it were smoke. The red glow in its chest pulsed brighter. Around them, the beacon came alive. Machines awoke, drones crawled from the walls, and shadows moved like living things. "Fall back!" Kara shouted. The crew ran, their boots pounding against the trembling floor. Behind them, the whisper became a roar, repeating again and again in broken sound. Juno cried out as the drones gave chase, their metallic limbs clattering against the walls. Kara fired at them, each shot lighting the darkness, but there were too many. They reached the corridor just before the doors slammed shut behind them, sealing the chamber once more. For a moment, silence returned. Heavy, suffocating. Juno leaned against the wall, gasping. "What was that? What was that?" Laven's voice shook with awe, not fear. "A guardian. Or a prisoner. Maybe both. Whatever it is, it's tied to the beacon. Someone put it there." Kara wiped sweat from her brow. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were hard. "No. Someone locked it there." The crew fell silent. Because if the council had locked something inside the beacon, then the silence was no accident. It was a warning. And the humans had just woken it up. The humans did not speak much on the way back to their ship. Each of them carried the same thought, though none dared to say it aloud. The beacon was not only broken, it was alive. Kara Holt stared out the viewport as their shuttle detached from the ancient station. The beacon's massive rings glimmered faintly, as if mocking them. Her jaw tightened. She had seen many strange things in her life, but nothing like this. Laven broke the silence first. "We cannot report this as it is." Kara turned her head sharply. "Why not? The council needs to know what's hiding inside their beacon." Laven's eyes glowed with excitement, not fear. "Because if we tell them, they will panic. They will shut us out. They will bury the truth and send us home. No, Captain, we must learn what it is before we speak." Juno almost shouted. "Learn? That thing screamed at us. It almost killed us." "It didn't attack," Laven countered calmly. "The drones did, yes, but the figure itself, it was warning us. Maybe even asking for help." "Help?" Juno shook her head. "It didn't sound like asking." Kara raised her hand to silence them. "Enough. First, we breathe. Then we think. What we saw changes everything, but we need to understand why it's there before we decide what to do." The soldiers remained silent, but their faces said what they felt. Fear. When they reached their ship, Kara sent a coded message to the council, but she chose her words carefully. She reported anomalies and possible internal corruption, but said nothing about the figure. She did not trust the council with that knowledge. Not yet. Instead, she gathered her crew in the briefing room. The dim light cast long shadows across their faces. "The beacon's silence is not an accident," Kara began. "Something inside it is alive, or was made to be alive. I don't know which. But we all saw it. And if it wakes further, the council's pride may become their nightmare. Laven leaned forward. Which means humanity is the only one who knows the truth. This gives us an advantage. Advantage? Juno snapped. You mean a curse? That thing will come for us if we stay here. Kara's eyes narrowed. No. It won't come for us. It's trapped inside the beacon. And that means someone put it there. The room went cold. The question none of them wanted to ask finally surfaced. Who had the power to lock such a thing inside the beacon? Who had the reason to keep it hidden? Laven broke the silence again. The council built the beacon. Or at least, that's what they claim. But maybe it wasn't their creation at all. Maybe they found it. Maybe they have been hiding this for centuries. Kara did not dismiss the idea. She had fought in council wars before. She knew how much truth they were willing to bury. That night, while the crew rested uneasily, Kara stayed awake, reviewing the data. The strange whispers recorded on their comms, the energy readings from the chamber, the symbols glowing on the walls. Something about them gnawed at her. They were not random. They were patterns, repeating like words. The more she listened, the more she felt the whispers shift. At first they were broken static. Then they began to sound almost human. Kara. Her blood ran cold. The voice said her name. She tore off her headset, her heart pounding. It was impossible. The beacon did not know her. And yet, the voice had been clear. The next morning, she told no one. But when they returned to the beacon, the crew noticed something new. The corridors were not the same. Paths had changed, walls shifted, as if the station itself had been rearranging in their absence. This wasn't here before, Juno muttered, scanning her map. It's like the place is moving. It is moving, Kara said grimly. It wants us to go somewhere. They followed the new path. Deeper and deeper, until they reached a chamber unlike any other. It was smaller, quieter, but in the center stood a console glowing faint blue, the first blue light they had seen since the beacon went dark. Laven rushed forward. A control node. If we access this, we might learn what powers the core. Kara nodded. Do it. But carefully. As Laven worked, the others kept watch. The air was heavy again, but this time different. Not threatening. Almost expectant. The console flickered, then came alive. Holographic images swirled above it, symbols, maps, fragments of history. The crew gasped. Juno pointed. That's not council language. No, Laven whispered, his eyes wide. It's older. Much older. This beacon was not made by the council. It was built by someone before them. The hologram shifted. They saw stars, wars, entire civilizations collapsing. And always, at the center, the same glowing figure they had seen in the core. A guardian, Laven breathed. Or a prisoner. It has been here since the beginning. The beacon is not just a machine. It's a cage. The images darkened. Planets burning. Fleets falling. The figure standing among the ruins. Then the light faded, leaving only silence. No one spoke. Finally, Kara said what they all feared. The council didn't build their pride. They inherited it. And whatever that thing is, it destroyed the ones who came before. The crew stared at her. And now, Kara finished, her voice hard as steel. It's waking again. The discovery shook the crew more than they wanted to admit. Humanity had always believed the council to be the center of galactic knowledge, the masters of all history. But now they had proof. The council's greatest treasure, their beacon, was not theirs at all. It belonged to something older, something dangerous. Kara Holt gathered her people again in the ship's dim mess hall. The silence between them was thick. No one touched their food. No one wanted to break the weight of what they had seen. At last, Juno spoke. If the beacon is a cage, then it's breaking. Laven shook his head quickly. No. Not breaking. Awakening. There's a difference. Juno's eyes flashed. Tell that to the drones that tried to tear us apart. Enough, Kara said sharply. She stood, her hands braced on the table. Her gaze was steady, but her voice carried steel. Listen. Whatever is inside that thing, it is old, powerful, and dangerous. And the Council never told anyone. That means they fear it more than us. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge? The soldiers exchanged glances. One finally spoke. Captain, if this gets out, there will be war. Every species will want answers. Some will want to free it. Some will want to destroy it. And we'll be caught in the middle. Kara nodded. Exactly. Which is why we play this carefully. Laven leaned forward, his eyes shining with an obsession that worried the others. No, Captain. We don't hide it. We study it. We're the first to see the truth. If we unlock its secrets, humanity will rise above the Council. We'll finally prove we belong among them. Juno slammed her hand on the table. Or we'll unleash something that ends all of us. The argument grew louder until Kara raised her voice over them. Stop. Both of you. We don't have the luxury of fighting each other. The beacon is alive. The figure is awake. And it's calling to us. That's the truth. Now we need to decide, do we keep answering that call, or do we run before it swallows us whole? The room fell silent again. No one had an answer. Later, as the ship orbited above the beacon, Kara found herself alone on the observation deck. The rings of the great machine glimmered faintly, like an eye half open. She could almost feel it watching her. And then she heard it again. Her name. Whispered. Almost human. Kara. She froze. This time she didn't pull away. She closed her eyes and listened. The voice was broken, fragmented, but there were words now. Not many. Just enough. Free me. Her breath caught in her throat. When she opened her eyes, the beacon below pulsed faintly, as if answering. The next day, she didn't tell the crew what she heard. Not yet. Instead, she led them back inside, following the paths that kept changing, as if guiding them deeper. Every corridor was different now, shifting like a living maze. Juno muttered, "It's leading us. It wants us somewhere." Kara didn't deny it. Finally, they reached a chamber they hadn't seen before. It was smaller than the others, almost like a shrine. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it lay something impossible, a book. An actual book. Its cover was dark metal, etched with the same symbols they had seen everywhere. But when Kara touched it, the symbols shifted into human letters. English. The words burned across the surface. We failed. Do not repeat us. The crew stared in shock. Laven's voice trembled. Impossible. How would it know our language? No one answered. The book opened itself, pages flipping though it had no paper, just sheets of light. The images were clear, ships burning, planets falling, and always the same glowing figure at the center. At first a guardian. Then a destroyer. The last image froze them. It showed the Council, those same 10 species, kneeling in front of the beacon. Not as rulers, but as prisoners. Juno whispered. The Council, they were never masters of this. They were survivors. Just like us. The room shook suddenly, the images collapsing into static. The voice returned, stronger now, echoing through every wall. Free me. The glow of the chamber darkened. Red light spilled across the walls, pulsing with the figure's heartbeat. The drones awoke again, their metallic claws scraping against the floor as they crawled from the shadows. Kara drew her weapon. Move. Back to the ship. They ran, the drones chasing, corridors twisting as if trying to trap them. The ship felt impossibly far away, every turn leading them deeper instead of out. But Kara refused to stop. At last, they reached the docking bay. The doors sealed behind them just as the drones slammed against the walls with deafening force. The ship tore free, engines burning bright as they escaped into space. Only when the beacon was a distant shadow did Kara let herself breathe. On the bridge, Juno collapsed into her chair, shaking. It's awake. It wants out. If we stay here, we're dead. Laven's eyes burned with obsession. No. We can't leave. This is history. This is power. Do you understand what this means? The Council has lied for millennia. But we, humans, we have seen the truth. We can control it. Kara's voice was low, but sharp as a blade. No one controls something like that. Not the Council. Not us. The ship fell silent again. But in the quiet, Kara still heard it. Her name. Kara. The beacon wasn't finished with her. The humans didn't sleep that night. Every shadow in the ship felt heavier, every sound from the hull made them jump. Even far from the beacon, the crew felt it breathing in the dark. Kara Holt sat alone in her cabin, staring at the data they had stolen. Images of the figure, the holograms, the words etched in their language. It all circled in her mind like a storm. The beacon wasn't a machine. It was a prison. And something inside wanted her help. Her comms flickered suddenly. Not with static, but with that same voice. Kara. She clenched her fists, refusing to answer. Free me. Her hand hovered over the console. Part of her wanted to cut the signal, pretend she never heard it. Another part, deeper and darker, wanted to listen. To understand. Instead, she whispered. Why me? There was no answer. Just the sound of breathing that wasn't hers. The next morning, she found her crew waiting for her on the bridge. Their faces were pale, their eyes restless. Juno spoke first. Captain. I heard it last night. Laven's head snapped up. You too. Juno nodded slowly. A voice. In my cabin. It said my name. It wanted out. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. One finally muttered. Same here. Kara's stomach tightened. It wasn't just her anymore. The beacon was reaching all of them. Laven looked almost triumphant. Don't you see? It's choosing us. Humanity. Out of all the species, it speaks to us. That means something. It means we're cursed, Juno snapped. It's trying to use us. Maybe, Laven admitted, but maybe not. What if it's warning us? What if the Council has been lying this whole time, and this being is the only truth left? Kara raised a hand. Enough. I don't care what it wants. We're not freeing anything until we know exactly what it is. But her own voice betrayed her. Deep down, she wasn't sure she believed her own words anymore. Hours later, the Council contacted them. The transmission filled the bridge with the faces of 10 species, their voices sharp and demanding. Report, Chancellor Valen hissed, his eyes narrow. You have been silent for too long. What have you found? Kara chose her words carefully. The beacon is corrupted. Its systems are unstable. We believe the silence may be caused by an internal containment failure. The Council exchanged uneasy looks. Elder Ray leaned forward, her glowing eyes narrowing. Containment of what? Kara hesitated. We don't know yet. That is unacceptable, Valen snapped. You were sent to fix it, not speculate. Kara met his gaze without flinching. Then send your own people inside. See what happens. The chamber went silent. None of the Council dared answer. They knew their own engineers hadn't survived. Finally, Elder Ray spoke softly. Continue your work, human. But understand this. Failure will not be forgiven. The transmission ended. The crew sat in silence. Juno muttered. They know. They've always known. Laven's eyes gleamed. And that's why they sent us. They didn't want to risk their own. If we die, they lose nothing. If we succeed, they take the credit. Kara's voice was cold. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. The crew looked at her in shock, but she didn't explain. Not yet. That night, the voice returned stronger than ever. Not just in whispers, but in images, visions flooding their dreams. Kara saw burning skies, fleets torn apart, entire worlds falling to ash. And at the center stood the figure, glowing with red fire. But this time, it was not only a destroyer. It was chained, bound, screaming as the chains burned into its body. She woke drenched in sweat, her heart racing. In the corridor outside, she found Juno already awake, trembling. "I saw it too," the young engineer whispered. "It's trapped. It's suffering. Captain, what if we're the villains here? What if the council chained it because they feared it, not because it was evil?" Kara had no answer. The next day, the beacon itself moved. Its massive rings shifted, grinding like a machine waking from sleep. Energy surged across its towers, lighting them in red. Every ship in orbit fled in terror, but Kara's crew held their ground. "Captain," one soldier said in panic, "it's waking up. If we don't leave now, it'll tear us apart." Kara stared at the beacon, her jaw tight. She felt the voice in her skull, louder than ever. "Free me." For the first time, she answered aloud. "Why me?" The reply came instantly. "Because you are human." The ship shook as the beacon pulsed, sending shockwaves across the system. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and every instrument went wild. Laven shouted over the chaos. "It's not random. It's reaching for us. It's opening a path." On the main screen, a new passage appeared in the beacon's rings. A corridor of light, waiting. Juno's voice was trembling. "Captain, if we go in there, we may never come back." Kara's eyes hardened. She felt the weight of every choice pressing on her shoulders. Run, and leave the truth buried. Or enter, and face whatever waited in the heart of the cage. She stood tall. Set course for the light. The crew gasped. Laven smiled like a man possessed. Juno cursed under her breath. The soldiers tightened their grips on their rifles. The engines roared. The human ship turned, and with a flash of fire, it dove straight into the beacon's new path. And as the light swallowed them, the voice spoke one last time. "Closer." The ship entered the corridor of light, and for a moment, everything vanished. No stars. No beacon. No sound. Just endless white stretching in every direction. The crew sat frozen at their stations, unsure if they were moving or standing still. The controls no longer responded. The engines were silent, yet the ship continued forward as if pulled by invisible hands. Juno whispered, "We're inside something that shouldn't exist." Laven stared out the viewport, his eyes wide with wonder. "This is a pocket space. The beacon is more than a machine, it bends reality itself." "Or it's a trap," one soldier muttered, his rifle tight against his chest. Kara stood at the front, her jaw hard. "Stay sharp. If it wanted us dead, we'd already be gone. It wants us here." Minutes, or maybe hours, passed before the white light shifted. Slowly, shapes began to form in the distance. Towers of black stone rose around them, stretching high into the void. Chains thicker than cities stretched across the sky, glowing red as if forged from fire. And in the center, suspended in endless chains, hung the figure. This time, they saw it clearly. It was humanoid, but larger, towering as if built from both flesh and energy. Its body was covered in glowing cracks, like a dying star caged in fragile skin. Its eyes were closed, but its chest burned with light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Every chain that bound it sank deep into its body, sizzling as if the metal itself was alive. Juno's voice shook. "It's suffering." Laven's recorder trembled in his hands. "Do you realize what this means? This isn't just a guardian. This is the power source. The beacon runs because of it. The council built their empire on its imprisonment." The soldiers swore under their breath. Kara's stomach twisted. She had fought wars for the council, bled for their pride, and now she understood the truth. Their pride was built on chains. The figure stirred. Slowly, its head lifted. Its eyes opened, two burning orbs of red light. The voice filled the ship, shaking every wall, vibrating in their bones. Human. Kara stepped forward, her fists clenched. What are you? The reply was broken, but clear enough. I was protector. I was keeper. They feared me. They chained me. Used me. My voice became their beacon. My prison became their pride. The crew froze. Juno whispered, "It's the beacon. It's the soul of the beacon." Kara's heart pounded. Why call for us? Why humans? The light in its chest pulsed brighter. Because you are not bound. Others kneel to counsel. You do not. You fight. The chains rattled as if straining to break. Free me, and I will give you the stars. Laven's eyes lit up like fire. Captain, do you hear that? This is it. If we release it, humanity becomes unstoppable. We'll be more than equals, we'll be rulers. Juno spun on him, furious. Rulers of what? You saw the visions. It destroys everything it touches. The council chained it for a reason. Or because they feared its power. Laven shot back. The soldiers raised their weapons, unsure whether to aim at the figure or each other. The voice boomed again. Choose, free me, or leave me. But no, the council will never let you live with truth. The ship shook violently as the corridor of light began to collapse. Time was running out. Kara's crew turned to her, waiting. Juno's eyes begged her. Don't do it, Captain. If we break those chains, we unleash something we can't stop. Laven leaned forward, desperate. Do it, Captain. This is our moment, our chance to take control of the galaxy. The soldiers said nothing, but their fear was clear. Kara stood frozen, the weight of the galaxy pressing on her shoulders. She thought of Earth, small and ignored. She thought of humanity, always underestimated. She thought of the beacon, built on lies. And she thought of the voice that had whispered her name since the beginning. Her decision formed like steel. We're not slaves, she said quietly. Not to the council. Not to you. The figure's eyes burned brighter. Then, prove it. Break my chains. No, Kara said firmly. Not yet. She turned to her crew. Get us out of here. The ship roared to life, tearing through the collapsing light corridor. Behind them, the chained figure screamed, not in rage, but in pain, as the world of chains faded back into white. And then, silence. The ship burst back into normal space, stars filling the viewport once more. The beacon loomed behind them, its rings glowing faintly red. The crew sat in shock, breathing hard, as if they had just crawled out of hell. Laven slammed his fist on the console. You made a mistake, Captain. We could have had it. We could have ruled. Kara's eyes were cold as ice. Or we could have doomed everyone. We're not playing its game. Not until we know what it really is. But deep down, she knew the choice wasn't finished. The chains wouldn't hold forever. And when they broke, the galaxy would burn. The beacon no longer felt like a silent machine. It felt alive, restless, and angry. Its red glow pulsed through space like the heartbeat of a caged beast. Kara Holt and her crew sat in tense silence aboard their ship. None of them spoke, but all of them knew the truth. The Council's great pride was no longer stable. The chains would not hold forever. Laven broke the silence first. His voice was low, but full of obsession. We should have freed it. You saw the power it holds. With it on our side, humanity would never kneel to the Council again. Juno snapped. You're insane. That thing isn't a savior. It's a weapon. Did you not see the visions? Worlds burning, fleets shattered. That's what happens when it's free. Laven leaned closer, his eyes burning. Maybe those worlds deserved to burn. Maybe the ones who chained it are the real monsters. Can't you see? We're standing on the edge of history. We could choose differently. Kara cut him off sharply. Enough. This isn't about what we could do. It's about what we should do. And right now, we don't know enough. But even as she said it, her mind replayed the figure's words. You are human. You fight. Why had it chosen her? Why not the council? The answer gnawed at her. Before she could dwell on it, an alarm blared. The beacon was transmitting again. Not light, not the old signal, but something new. A wave of raw energy rippled across space. The comms filled with the voices of the council, frantic and afraid. What is happening? The beacon is unstable. Contain it, now. On the main screen, Kara watched as fleets gathered around the beacon. Warships from 10 species circled it like predators around wounded prey. Their weapons charged, aiming at the structure that had once been their pride. Juno's eyes widened. They're going to destroy it. Laven shook his head. They can't. It powers everything. If the beacon dies, their empire collapses. Kara realized the truth before he finished. They don't care anymore. They'd rather destroy it than risk losing control. The beacon pulsed again, brighter, stronger. The chained figure's voice echoed through every channel, every ship, every mind. Free me, or all will fall. The fleets opened fire. Beams of light, missiles, and plasma storms slammed into the beacon's rings. Explosions rippled across its surface, tearing away pieces of metal. But the structure didn't die. Instead, it screamed. The voice roared across the stars, shaking every vessel. Drones erupted from the beacon, thousands of them, swarming the fleets like locusts. The council's pride had turned against them. Captain, one soldier shouted. If we stay, we're next. Kara's knuckles turned white on the controls. Her instincts screamed at her to flee. But another instinct, older and deeper, whispered something else. This is humanity's moment. She turned to her crew. We have two choices. We run and let the council burn, or we act. And if we act, we don't act for them. We act for us. Juno's voice shook. Captain, what are you saying? Kara looked out at the chaos. I'm saying we decide the beacon's fate. Not the council. Not the thing inside it. Us. Laven's eyes gleamed. Then free it. Juno's voice cracked. Or destroy it. The soldiers gripped their rifles, silent, waiting. Kara felt the weight of history pressing on her. Humanity had always been small, ignored, underestimated. But now the galaxy's greatest secret was in her hands. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then opened them. Prepare the charges. The crew gasped. Juno's voice broke. You're going to blow it up? Kara nodded grimly. If the council built their empire on chains, then we break the cycle. We won't be slaves, and we won't be jailers. The beacon ends with us. Laven's face twisted with rage. You fool! Do you know what you're throwing away? Do you know what humanity could have become? Kara's voice was iron. We'll become something better. Free. The ship dove toward the beacon, weaving through swarms of drones and burning wreckage. Explosions lit the void as fleets and machines clashed in fire. Kara's crew worked in silence, planting charges along the beacon's weakest points. The closer they got, the louder the chained figure's voice grew. Human, do not betray me. The chains rattled, glowing red-hot. The figure strained, pulling against its prison. For the first time, Kara felt fear, not of death, but of the choice she was making. She whispered to herself, "We're not your pawns." The charge is armed. The countdown began. The crew raced back to the ship, hearts pounding. Drones closed in, but the soldiers held them off, buying precious seconds. At the last moment, the engines roared, and the ship broke free of the beacon's gravity. Kara gave the final order. Detonate. The explosion ripped across space. The beacon's rings shattered, towers crumbled, and the chains of fire snapped one by one. A final scream echoed through the void, part rage, part sorrow, part freedom. And then, silence. For the first time in 10,000 years, the beacon was gone. The council's fleets scattered, broken and leaderless. Without the beacon, their power collapsed in an instant. Kara sat in her chair, staring at the ruins. The galaxy had changed forever. Juno whispered, "What have we done?" Kara answered quietly, but firmly. "We've given the galaxy back its silence. Now humanity writes its own future." The ship turned away from the wreckage, its engines burning bright against the endless stars. And somewhere in the dark, far beyond the ruins, a faint whisper lingered. "Human." But this time, it faded into nothing.